co-founder. Thank you. So we are going to talk about the information warfare, which is an intentional language that I'm using. If someone can pull up the slides, I'll give you a little visuals. So let me begin by saying that we have to have a new script. We have to have a script that accurately describes what it is we're dealing with. The gender community has spent entirely too much time talking about these issues as just online hate. That is one component of an ecosystem in which we are operating where women's leadership is taken for granted, is undermined for issues of democracy that are informing that. So, if you take one thing away from this session, it should be that this entire conversation, this ecosystem which we're going to talk about, is about democracy. It is about power. It is not about gender-based violence in the world. And the outgrowth that we're experiencing is a result of that. So why is this happening? And what do we do about it? So first, a well-defined problem is half the solution. We need to understand that we are on a digital battlefield. Authoritarians are exploiting gender to polarize societies with these figures behind it. They are attacking in a very systematic, strategic, global arena, which is why we're getting the kind of results that you saw in the Reykjavik Index a moment ago. Two examples of what this looks like, just to highlight some of the data that we collect. This is the Brazil election 2022. The candidate against Bolsonaro had a deep fake forgery issued against her. Her t-shirt said rebel. It was photoshopped to say Jesus is transgender. Now, besides that is the data that Maria Ressa and the Nerve, and She Persisted, collaborated in order to look at the digital forensics of the audiences that were building an anti-rights agenda in order to attack and undermine women leaders because they're attacking and undermining democracy. Fast forward to Moldova. Successful election, parliamentary and presidential election in the last year. I've seen very few countries targeted with as much digital threats, disinformation, deep fakes than Moldova. Congratulations for any Moldovans in the room who defeated this. And it's because it's a Kremlin focus. This is about democracy. This is not about hate. The maps to the side are the forensics data we need in order to disrupt this system. So what is this system and why is this happening at scale? It's happening because it's an engine of harm that is at work. So the oligarchy meets the bros in the form of a broligarchy coming to an election and parliament near you. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, do we want these unelected men, no one voted for them, no one gave them power, do we want them to tell us who to vote for, to threaten your own territorial sovereignty, to tell you how many babies you need to have and of what race? Then we should do nothing to regulate the digital marketplace in which these monopolies are undermining democracy. These are the megaphones for the war on truth, and we need to start talking about it in a way that brings us to more fruitful solutions. No country can withstand this. For girls, it's about algorithmic body shaming, leading to a self-harm crisis. For boys, it's digital grooming. It's not just that boys are curious. The curiosity we don't mind, but their curiosity on skincare, on workout, will be 2 steps away from a great replacement theory conspiracy. For democracy, this is weaponized information and weakening our institutions, shutting down what women for generations will be able to do or not. But we cannot resilience train our way out of this crisis. I'm not here to deliver sugary, sweet empowerment messages. We have to resist. The resist path are these 5 components. We need regulation of the digital monopolies that are governing everyone's life. We need emergency infrastructure in the meantime for the virtual war rooms, legal, media support that can help us salvage things. We need cross-border solidarity like this conference helps us create. We need to reclaim masculinity, but not way too much into some of the narrative side. The medium is the message, and we have to understand the digital pathway of that kind of radicalization. Thank you to Reykjavik for highlighting in Equimundo all of the work and everyone in that space. And we need serious investment because we are up against serious, well-funded actors. This is the State of Emergency toolkit. Everyone should download it, replicate it. Don't need to even give us credit for it. We need to use it. We need to operate. So let's now move into the panel. So let me start with Trisha. You have faced a coordinated digital attack system against you for many years to silence you. You are here, you are not silent. So what have been the methods that you've employed in which to deal with this digital attack machine?
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. So, when I started over 10 years ago, the first sort of attacks I started receiving were from male rights activists, right? It was people, the very much cliche of bored men in their bedrooms, coordinating over WhatsApp group chats to figure out who is speaking on what issue. So I first essentially said marital rape should be criminalized. Marriage is not a license for sex on national TV. That was enough to trigger these MRAs. And then they had their WhatsApp group chats where they would send you coordinated threats and attacks. Over time, what I have seen evolve, this hate machinery online, is no more these men in boardrooms. It's a machinery that's intelligent, highly strategic, that's AI-based. Very specific. Threats to me involved death threats, rape threats, and mass emails being sent to me, my colleagues, to sort of make me seem as radioactive, right? And what we're seeing back then when we started was these social media platforms very much wanted to be woke, right? They had their gender and safety council. Come fast forward to today, we're seeing this social media heads engage in bending the knee to the geopolitical fascist trends that we have seen. So we're not living in this climate anymore where social media agencies care about being politically correct. So for me, the threats evolved from getting 10 to 20 threats a day ranging from death threats, rape threats, to now thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of threats. What can you do when you get these threats on social media? 3 things. You can mute them, you can block them, you can report them. You can report them on the platform, you can report them to the police station. Depending on the country that you live in, depends on whether the police is willing to help you or not, right? So this comes to, what is the solution? For me, I went through severe depression, I marinated in PTSD, all of it, and I remember having a conversation with my sister. She said, no one is forcing you to do this work, you can quit. Do you want to stay, do you want to quit? I said, okay, I stay. So then the second step involved understanding the strategy. What is their strategy? What is their recipe for virality? I think of Maria Ressa, who says, lies spread faster on social media, 6 times faster, and they use 3 pins of fear, anger, hate. So I was like, okay, how do I fight back? This is my recipe for virality. I see your threats and abuses and raise you my humor, my defiance, and facts. Facts sourced by journalists. You say I fucked my way to the top? Well, go ahead and do the same. I'll see you on the top. The view is great, That's the best you have. Go right ahead and slut shame me, abuse me, threaten me. You want to send me 100 death threats? Thank you very much. There are days I can't get out of bed. You're just reminding me I'm powerful. I open my phone, I see all these death threats. I was like, I should definitely get my coffee and get to work. They just reminded me I'm so bloody powerful, right? I think of mental game, which is what Jimmy Wales, I had a conversation with him a long time ago when I was trying to figure out how to survive. And he said, for most of these people, the threat starts and stops with hitting the button send. So that helped me distill a lot of the threats that I was getting. Who are these people that are just hitting the button send? Okay, puff, you can move that away. What are the actual threats I need to take into consideration? Everything gets documented. Now you are monetizing your hate, I will monetize my trauma. Thank you. My social media follower is just engaging. I'm going to make a case for it. I'm here because of the same reasons that the threats I've received. I've monetized my trauma too. Thank you very much. And finally, when the FBI, when I was getting extreme death threats in America, the law enforcement told me, have you considered keeping your mouth shut? I said, this is the law enforcement telling me this, right? Out of all his goodwill. And I said, I tried with my right hand, the left hand pushes it away. The left always wins. So you know what? They have their threats, they have their violence, which is very well funded. What do I have? I have my conviction, I have my constitution, and I have my community. So my boxing gloves are on, let's play. And in final conclusion, this is where coalitions come into play. Right, I come back to Maria Ressa. She co-launched the International Fund for Public Interest Media to raise money to fund journalists, because without facts, there is no democracy. Without independent media, without independent judiciary, without independent civil society, there is no democracy. Now, they have their coalitions of weak men coming to fascist leaders. What is happening in parallel is IFPIM just got 10 million euro commitment by France at the Paris Peace Forum, and Ghana, as a country, is the first African country that has also pledged support to this media coalition, where European leaders are coming together saying, no, the media is all ours, we will regulate, we will put money behind to make sure this is a safe space for all. So the access is not revolving around America, the access is revolving around these groups and these coalitions.
Excellent, thank you. Christy, you've been calling for structural reform and understanding of media markets. What do women leaders need to understand about the media in which we are operating and communicating?
Well, I think your framework of information warfare is really important for us all to start using. If we think of it as a war, and I don't think there is a better metaphor for it right now, in fact, I don't think it is a metaphor. I think it is a literal war for our brains. So in the past, we would have called it propaganda. We would have called it disinformation. But if you think of it as a war, Kristina, what we need are weapons on the other side. So the metaphor of fighting that Trisha just used, I think is a good one. That takes two things of your five, which I agree with all of them, but I want to amplify two things that you said. One is regulation with teeth. Everyone in here is a policymaker, whether you're a government policymaker or a corporate policymaker or an NGO leader who may influence policy. You're all influential and can help make policy. We need regulation with teeth. This is not going to go away unless we regulate it. That is the bottom line. The second thing that I want to amplify is investment. The bottom line is money is power, power is money. We need investment in this, and it needs to be cross-border, cross-sector. This isn't unique to gender. This is a global issue. It is in every country, and it's in every vertical, whether you are in nuclear non-proliferation, if you are in climate, if you are in gender. Whatever you're doing, this is not somebody else's problem, this is your problem. And we do have a community that can come together to help resolve this, but it will take money. So the last thing I would say is this, and I should be wearing a tweed jacket and smoking a pipe as I say this, and I apologize to the historians in the room, but I just happen to be reading right now a history of New York from the time of colonization. And I'm at the Revolutionary War part now, and you're picturing George Washington. We know he wasn't perfect or even great, but he's wearing his hat. He's an experienced general who had fought wars in the past, and he lost all the battles for New York because his army were a bunch of farmers and shopkeepers, and they were not a professional army. And so in the book it says he was so furious after thousands of people died and the farmers fled back to their farms because they didn't want to fight anymore, that he is so furious he was said to have thrown his hat down 3 times. So I'm throwing my hat down 3 times. I think if 500 of us throw our hats down 3 times, then what he did was he said to the revolutionaries, I'm not fighting anymore unless you give me a real army and resources. They need training, they need weapons, and give me some real soldiers. So a lot of us may not be comfortable with the metaphor of war and soldiers and fighting. The bottom line is we won't survive this, I think, if we don't get comfortable with it.
Yes. Yes. Everyone needs to bring Christy to their events and consult with them on what we don't understand about media. Vanessa, let me move to you. You work every day at the intersection of migration, identity, masculinity. These are trends that are globalized now and very emotionally difficult in the way they're transforming societies based on disinformation and distortions, let's say. What have you seen in the last few months on these issues that apply globally? What can we take from this fight?
Thank you for the question, and I learned one word in Icelandic, which is tak. So thank you for having me. Gracias for inviting me. There's just so much. I mean, we can talk for hours on this issue, but I want to focus on a couple of things. I want to give a little bit of context. I work in the immigrant rights movement, but of course, you guys know that on this issue, it's not an issue based on facts. The conversation on immigration is all now filled with conspiracy theories, with lies and disinformation that have been exponentially broadening by the social media actors. So we are really facing a really tough moment in the United States, but this is a global problem. So let me start by giving you three numbers. The first number is $1 billion, and that is the amount of money that the right wing spent on anti-immigration ads in the last cycle, just on anti-immigration ads. And this was across the United States. And the narratives were focused on invasion, on Great Replacement theory, as well as crime. And we know, for example, on the Great Replacement theory, that at the core of Great Replacement theory is this notion of controlling women's bodies and their reproductive rights. So the intersections with gender is really important. And we also know that restrictive immigration policies actually affect women very, very deeply because it exacerbates gender-based violence, it exacerbates exploitation, as well as dependency. The other number I want to give you is $170 billion, which is what Congress just gave to the Trump administration to implement their mass deportation policies, which means now that the United States government has just funded the largest investment of law enforcement in the Department of Homeland Security, which is an immigration enforcement arm. So their budget is bigger than all the state and local law enforcements put together, the law enforcement agencies put together. And the last number I want to give you is $50 million. So the Trump administration has already spent $50 million on political ads this year that are based on anti-immigration narratives. And that money is being spent on cable TV, on streaming platforms, as well as social media. So when we talk about how these narratives are being absorbed by the public, it's just really out there. And of course, the role that social media companies have on really, at this point, just allowing this to happen. But here's the good news, and this is where I'll turn to sort of like this moment. We are seeing that the exposure to actually what is happening on the ground is turning the tide in terms of Americans rejecting this extremist agenda. So we are seeing that the majority of Americans now say that this administration is going too far. So what that means in terms of our strategies on how to combat disinformation are, for me, just really, again, basic communication strategies. The first strategy is our message. One of the things that we talk a lot about is the human impacts of this mass deportation agenda and really elevate that and how that's affecting families, women, workers, parents. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have seen, but in the last week, we've seen ICE agents actually going to preschools to arrest teachers. We've seen ICE agents being deployed around Halloween parades. So there's a really, obviously, huge effect on families and kids. So the message is really important. We also talk about the economic impacts that this agenda is having. So really elevating the harms, not just at the macro level, but at the micro level. The second point is messengers, and I think this is actually relates a lot to the conversations we've been having about collaboration and expanding our tent, because we need to bring different voices into our space and into our advocacy. So in the immigration context, we bring voices from the national security spaces, from the education spaces, business community, et cetera. And the last piece, and this is, I think, maybe the most important strategy when you're talking about how to fight back against disinformation, is expanding our distribution channels and really promoting more coordination and amplification. And that is really key to counter the disinformation efforts that we're seeing across the board. And that really starts at the local level. And I think one of the successes of this moment in terms of fighting back against the disinformation on immigration is the fact that we're seeing entire communities really organizing themselves, wanting to be witness to document the abuses of power, and using their own socials to amplify that. And that is really turning the tide in terms of the narratives. So those are some of the strategies that we're seeing being deployed. And I will also end with something that Maria Ressa said, I think last year when she was on this stage, which is that a core motivator is emotion and hope. And when we think about the issues that we're dealing with, and when we think what resonates online, emotion and hope are authentic. And we really need to embrace that to really give people something to do, an action-oriented call, and also kind of send that message that, this is something that we care about and we can do something about. So.
Amazing. This is just a tip of the iceberg. We are all probably among the Maria Ressa fan club. So Maria, thank you. And as she said, courage comes through action. What is the one action word you would like to leave the audience as we wrap today?
I just want to make it very concrete. The French government, under the presidency of President Macron and Foreign Minister of Affairs Jean-Noël Barrot, they just held a huge political declaration, bringing a coalition of countries to double down to defend the rights of, to defend gender-based rights. So the action word is "Bol ke lab azade tere," which is "Speak for your lips are free," and there is political power and coalitions coming together to defend our right to speak.
Okay, Vanessa.
That's great. I think someone was a phrase, is broadening our tent, bringing different voices into our spaces to help to build coalitions, because I think that's what actually makes us more powerful. Thank you.
Well, I agree, and we can't fight without a coalition, so let's put all those things together collectively. We have a lot of power. That's why we're here in Reykjavik. Let's use it.
Yes. Thank you. Power. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you to everyone in the audience. Let's get to work.